California is a $3.5 trillion economy, a modern-day Rome. Sun-soaked beaches that stretch for miles, mountain ranges that scrape clouds, tech empires that run half the world's digital infrastructure. But like Rome, it's being torn apart. Not by invaders, by its own foundation. Its geography is a trap. And in this video, we'll show you how its three biggest flaws, water, fire, and earth, are combining to engineer its collapse. You've probably heard California has problems. Droughts, wildfires, earthquakes. Everyone knows this. But what most people don't realize is that these aren't separate issues. They're not three different disasters California happens to deal with. They're all part of one system. One geographical flaw, and that system is accelerating toward a breaking point. Before we dive in, if you're getting hooked on this, smash that like button. Seriously, it tells YouTube to show this to more people. And subscribe if you want more videos where we make geography feel like the thriller it actually is. Let's start with the most fundamental one: water. Because here's something nobody tells you about California. Most of it is a desert, and I don't mean that metaphorically. Los Angeles gets 13 inches of rain per year. That's legitimately less than Phoenix, Arizona. San Francisco, the foggy city everyone thinks is constantly wet, 23 inches. For context, New York City gets nearly 50 inches. London gets 24. California's biggest cities exist in what should be an uninhabitable wasteland. Walk through downtown LA on a sunny day and it feels like paradise. Palm trees, blue skies, the Pacific breeze. But look closer. Really look. Every green lawn, every filled swimming pool, every fountain in every plaza is a lie. An engineering miracle. Or maybe a trick. The reason for all this comes down to one mountain range, the Sierra Nevada. Beautiful, snow-capped. Instagram perfect, and California's executioner. Here's how it works. When moist air from the Pacific Ocean rolls east toward California, it hits these mountains. The air rises to get over the peaks. As it rises, it cools, and when air cools, it loses moisture. So all that Pacific moisture, all that rain, all that potential water, gets dumped on the western side of the Sierra. By the time the air crosses to the other side, it's wrung dry. Bone dry. This is called a rain shadow. And sitting right in that shadow, Death Valley, one of the driest, hottest places on Earth. Also in that shadow, most of Southern California's interior, the places where 30 million people are trying to live. So how do they survive? Aqueducts. Miles and miles and miles of concrete veins that suck water from places that have it and pump it hundreds of miles to places that don't. The Los Angeles Aqueduct, completed in 1913, stretches over 230 miles from the Owens River. It required more than 2,000 workers and the digging of 164 tunnels. Mulholland's granddaughter said the complexity of the project was comparable to building the Panama Canal. That's not an exaggeration. This was one of the greatest engineering projects in American history. And it was built for one reason: to make Los Angeles possible. But here's where it gets dark. That water came from somewhere, the Owens Valley, a place the indigenous Numu people called Payahunadu, the land of flowing water. Early white settlers called it American Switzerland. It was lush, green, fed by snowmelt from the Sierra. Farmers grew pears. Ranchers raised cattle. It was paradise. Then Los Angeles came. In 1904, Fred Eaton and William Mulholland secretly began buying up water rights in the Owens Valley without telling farmers what they intended to do. When locals found out, one newspaper reported that a mob ran Eaton out of town with threats of violence if he returned. But it was too late. Los Angeles had the rights, and when the aqueduct turned on in November 1913, the water started flowing south, and it never stopped. The result? By 1926, Owens Lake was completely dry. Irrigated land in the valley dropped from 75,000 acres in 1920 to 23,000 acres in 1940. The land of flowing water became a dust bowl. In 1924, desperate farmers dynamited the aqueduct. They staged armed occupations. Between 1924 and 1931, there were 17 separate attacks on the aqueduct. It didn't matter. Los Angeles won. By 1928, 90% of the Owens Valley was owned by the city of Los Angeles. And the State Water Project? Even bigger. It's the largest state-built water system in the United States. 644 miles of canals, tunnels, and pipes, moving water from Northern California all the way to San Diego. Without these systems, Southern California would become unlivable in weeks, maybe days. Here's the nightmare. The entire system relies on one source. The Sierra Nevada snowpack provides more than 60% of California's developed water supply. 60%. The survival of 39 million people depends on snow in one mountain range. And that snow is disappearing. Warming temperatures mean less snow falls each winter, and more of what does fall comes as rain instead. Rain runs off immediately. Snow stores water slowly, releasing it through spring and summer, when California needs it most. By the late 2040s, scientists project the Sierra could see winters with little to no snow. That's not speculation. That's math. And when it happens, the entire system collapses. But wait, if California is so dry, you might be thinking, how did they build all those reservoirs in the first place? Where did the water come from to fill Shasta Dam, Lake Oroville, all those massive concrete megastructures? Good question. Because here's the paradox. California doesn't just get too little water. Sometimes it gets way, way, way too much. Enter atmospheric rivers. And no, this isn't a metaphor. These are actual rivers. In the sky. Narrow bands of intense moisture, sometimes 500 miles wide, that stretch thousands of miles across the Pacific and carry staggering amounts of water vapor. When one of these systems stalls over California and dumps its payload into the Sierra Nevada, it can drop more water in a few days than some places see in a year. Most of California's annual precipitation comes from just a handful of these storms. Not dozens, a handful. Maybe 3 to 5 big ones a year. Now imagine one that doesn't stop. For over a month. That happened in 1861. From late November through mid-January 1862, California was pummeled by a 43-day storm that dropped the equivalent of 10 feet of precipitation across the state. The Central Valley, 300 miles long, 20 miles wide, turned into an inland sea. Downtown, Sacramento sat underwater. Newly inaugurated Governor Leland Stanford traveled to his swearing-in ceremony by rowboat. The California legislature fled to San Francisco for 6 months while Sacramento dried out. At least 21 people died. 1 in 8 houses was destroyed. As much as 25% of California's taxable property was wiped out. 200,000 of California's 800,000 head of cattle drowned or starved. The state went so bankrupt that the governor, legislature, and all state employees didn't receive paychecks for 18 months. The economy collapsed. And remember, this happened when California had fewer than 500,000 people. Today, it has 80 times that many. This wasn't a freak accident. Geological sediment records show that mega floods of this scale hit California about once every 100 to 200 years. Which means we're overdue. Scientists at the USGS have modeled a similar event happening today and given it a name. ARkStorm. Atmospheric River 1,000-Year Storm. A modern version would flood 25% of all buildings in the state, displace 1.5 million people, and cause over $1 trillion in damage. That's 3 times worse than a magnitude 8 earthquake, and climate change is making these storms more frequent and more intense. What used to be a 200-year event is now closer to a 100-year event, maybe less. So California's water system is engineered for drought. Or flood, not both. Reservoirs have to release water every winter to create capacity for potential flooding. But if the floods don't come, there's not enough water stored for the inevitable drought. And if the floods do come and are bigger than expected, the system gets overwhelmed. It's a tug-of-war California is guaranteed to lose. The geography demands extremes. The infrastructure can only handle averages, and averages don't exist anymore. But here's the thing. Even if California solved its water problem tomorrow, if they desalinated the ocean, if they built 1,000 new reservoirs, if they perfected water recycling, it wouldn't matter, because the water won't save them from fire. Let me tell you about chaparral. Dense, scrubby vegetation that covers millions of acres across California. It looks harmless, just bushes, shrubs, maybe some low trees. But chaparral isn't just flammable, it's designed to burn, evolutionarily engineered for fire. Many chaparral plants need fire to reproduce. Their seeds are coated in hard shells that won't crack open unless exposed to the intense heat of wildfire. Some plants produce oils that make them burn hotter and faster. It's not a bug, it's a feature. For thousands of years, chaparral ecosystems burned every 30 to 60 years. Lightning strikes, sparks, natural ignition. The plants would explode in flame, reseed the landscape, and start over. Fire wasn't the enemy. Fire was the life cycle. Then humans showed up and decided fire was bad. For over a century, California's official policy was simple. Suppress every fire as fast as possible. Put them out, all of them, no exceptions. The result? Fuel buildup. Decades and decades of dead brush, dense undergrowth, overcrowded forests. When fire finally does break out, and it always does because fire is part of the system, it doesn't burn naturally. It explodes. And then there's the wind, Santa Ana winds. If chaparral is the fuel, Santa Anas are the blowtorch. These aren't normal winds. They're katabatic winds, meaning they flow downhill from high-pressure systems over the Great Basin and Mojave Desert. As they descend toward the coast, they compress, and when air compresses, it heats up. By the time these winds hit Southern California, they're hot, dry, and screaming fast. Gusts regularly hit 80 miles per hour, sometimes over 100. The relative humidity drops below 10%, sometimes below 5%. The air becomes a hairdryer, a furnace, pointed directly at millions of homes. Santa Anas blow about 10 to 25 times a year. Most are mild, but when a strong one coincides with a dry year, with lots of accumulated fuel on the ground, it doesn't matter how prepared you are. The landscape ignites. In 2018, the campfire started when a faulty transmission line failed during high winds in the Feather River Canyon. Within 2 hours, embers were being blown ahead of the main fire into the town of Paradise, igniting dozens of spot fires that overwhelmed firefighters. By 6 p.m., 95% of Paradise had burned. The fire killed 85 people, displaced over 52,000, and destroyed more than 18,000 structures. It became the deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history. And it almost didn't have to happen this way. In 2005, CAL FIRE released a management plan warning that Paradise was at severe risk for an east wind-driven conflagration similar to the Oakland firestorm of 1991. In 2009, a county grand jury report concluded that evacuation routes out of Paradise had significant capacity limitations. Despite these warnings, Paradise city planners did not incorporate the study results into new development plans. People kept building, Paradise kept growing, and when the fire came, it moved at a rate equivalent to the area of a football field per second. Trees fell and blocked escape routes. Vehicles jammed roads as fire burned over them. Evacuees drove through flames that shattered car windows and melted tires. This is what happens when you build homes inside the fire zone, and California has done exactly that. Massively. The wildland-urban interface, the WI, is where human development meets wildland vegetation. It's the boundary between civilization and nature. And California has more homes in this zone than any other state. 32 to 40% of California's housing sits in high fire risk areas. That's over $1.3 trillion in real estate. More than 11 million people. Over a quarter of the state's population. Living in a tinderbox, and they're not just near the fuel. In many cases, they are the fuel. Wooden decks, shake roofs, eucalyptus trees imported from Australia, trees that literally explode when they burn because of the oil in their bark, homes packed close together so when one catches, the fire jumps to the next. And the next, and the next. It's not if these places burned. The geography demands it. The question is only when. Every major California fire follows the same pattern: strong winds, dry conditions, accumulated fuel, and then catastrophic destruction. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake? Most of the damage wasn't from the shaking. It was the fires that raged for 3 days afterward while broken water mains left firefighters helpless. The 1991 Oakland Hills fire killed 25 people and destroyed 3,000 homes. The 2017 Tubbs fire, the 2018 Camp Fire that erased Paradise, the 2020 August Complex fire, the first gigafire in California history, burning over 1 million acres. Every single one had the same ingredients: wind, fuel, ignition. But here's where it gets worse. The water system California depends on, the aqueducts, the reservoirs, the entire infrastructure, it can't save them. Because when the big one hits, that infrastructure breaks. And when it breaks, fire doesn't just spread, it rages unchecked. Everyone knows about the San Andreas Fault. The big one. The earthquake that's supposedly overdue. 7.8, maybe 8, maybe 9. Shaking for 2 minutes. Buildings collapse, highways buckle, bridges fall, thousands dead, hundreds of billions in damage. That's the nightmare everyone prepares for. Earthquake kits, stored water. Drop, cover, hold on. But here's what people don't understand. The shaking isn't the real threat. The real nightmare is what happens after the ground stops moving. The big one isn't one disaster, it's 3. At the same time. In the same place. And California's geography has pre-programmed all of them to happen together. Let's walk through it. Say it's a magnitude 7.8 on the southern San Andreas. The fault runs through the Coachella Valley, cuts past the Inland Empire, runs east of Los Angeles through the San Gabriel Mountains. When it ruptures, the ground doesn't just shake, it tears. The western side of the fault moves northwest, the eastern side moves southeast. 15 feet of displacement, in some places 30 feet. Roads split down the middle, water mains snap, gas lines rupture, power goes out across the entire region. Now here's where it starts cascading. Those gas lines aren't just leaking, they're sparking. The shaking triggers thousands of ignitions across urban areas. Electrical shorts, ruptured mains, overturned equipment, pilot lights blown out and reignited. And remember what we just learned about California? The state is covered in explosive vegetation. The WUI extends into almost every foothill community around Los Angeles. So now you have a city, multiple cities, on fire. At the same time, in dozens or hundreds of locations. You can fight fires, right? You just need water. Except remember step 1? The water mains are broken, shattered, drained. The entire distribution system, thousands of miles of century-old pipes, is compromised. Firefighters arrive at hydrants that don't work. Fire engines can't pump, and the fires keep spreading, unchecked. And if that's not enough, here's the real horror. The big one will probably hit during fire season. Why? Because seismic stress doesn't care about the calendar, but the environmental conditions that correlate with increased earthquake probability, changes in groundwater levels, atmospheric pressure shifts, seasonal ground loading, also happen to align with California's driest, hottest months. Late summer, early fall, exactly when fire risk is highest. So you're not just dealing with earthquake-triggered fires, you might already have wildfires burning in the mountains, and now you've added thousands more ignition points with no water, and potentially Santa Ana winds blowing at 80 miles per hour. At the same time, this isn't speculation. This is the cascading failure scenario that emergency planners have been modeling for decades, and it gets worse. Recent research into the Cascadia subduction zone off the coast of Oregon and Washington has revealed something terrifying. Historical records show that when Cascadia ruptures, and it will, it's done so repeatedly throughout geological history, it sometimes triggers the San Andreas within hours or days. It's called stress transfer. The massive slip along one fault system can literally load stress onto adjacent faults hundreds of miles away. So the big one might not even start in California. It could cascade down from the north. A magnitude 9 megathrust earthquake in the Pacific Northwest, followed by a magnitude 8 in Northern California, followed by ruptures propagating south down the entire San Andreas system. The entire West Coast shaking in sequence like dominoes. Picture it. A city on fire. No water to fight it. The ground still shaking with aftershocks. Roads buckled and impassable. Power out, communications down. Hospitals overwhelmed or evacuated, and potentially millions of people trying to evacuate at the same time through infrastructure that no longer functions. This is the cascading failure, not one disaster, all of them, at once, engineered by California's own geography. Let's zoom out for a second, because what we've just described isn't three separate problems, it's one system. And the system is accelerating. Climate change is making the droughts longer and more severe. It's making the atmospheric rivers more intense and more frequent. It's extending fire season, which used to run from June to October but now effectively lasts year-round. It's killing forests through bark beetle infestations enabled by warmer winters, turning millions of acres of standing timber into kindling. And it's not making earthquakes more likely, but it is ensuring that when they happen, the conditions for cascading failures are already in place. California's population has grown from fewer than 10 million in 1950 to nearly 40 million today. And where have people moved? Into the WUI, into the foothills, into the exact zones where fire, water, and earth converge. Because those places are beautiful, they're desirable. You get mountain views, privacy, nature, right up until nature reminds you that it's been burning, flooding, and shaking for millions of years. Your house has been there for 30. The infrastructure is aging. The State Water Project is over 50 years old. Much of it needs replacing. The electrical grid that sparked the Camp Fire and numerous other wildfires is in many places over a century old. Buildings constructed before modern seismic codes could collapse in a major earthquake. Evacuation routes designed for populations a fraction of today's size become gridlocked death traps when everyone tries to leave at once. And the economics make it worse. Insurance companies are fleeing California. After the Camp Fire, after the Woolsey Fire, after years of billion-dollar wildfire losses, many insurers have either massively raised rates or stopped offering coverage in high-risk areas entirely, which means people are either uninsured or underinsured, which means when disaster strikes, they can't rebuild. Communities don't recover. They disappear. Paradise is trying to rebuild. 5 years after the fire, the population is less than half what it was. Many people left and never came back. The ones who stayed are tougher, maybe, or more stubborn, or they simply had nowhere else to go. But the geography hasn't changed. The chaparral is growing back. The winds still blow. The next fire is a question of when, not if. Here's the thing that keeps emergency managers awake at night. There's no engineering solution to this. You can't build your way out of geography. Sure, California could build more reservoirs. They could upgrade the electrical grid. They could enforce stricter building codes, create defensible space around homes, improve forest management. All of that helps. At the margins. But it doesn't change the fundamental equation. The Sierra Nevada will still create a rain shadow. The Pacific will still generate atmospheric rivers. The chaparral will still want to burn. The San Andreas Fault will still rupture eventually. And when these systems interact, when the drought makes the fire worse, when the earthquake breaks the water supply during fire season, when 39 million people all need to evacuate at once, no amount of preparation will be enough. California is essentially trying to maintain a modern technological civilization in a place that is geographically hostile to large-scale human habitation. And for a while, it worked. The aqueducts were a miracle. The highways, the cities, the economy, all of it was built on the assumption that you could engineer your way past geography, that you could import enough water, suppress enough fire, and build structures strong enough to survive the shaking. But that assumption is breaking down. The margins are getting thinner. The fires are getting worse, the droughts are longer. The big one is one day closer, and the ARkStorm could arrive this winter, or next year, or in 2040. California isn't unlucky. It's a geographical marvel built on a knife's edge. A house of cards. a $3.5 trillion economy constructed on an impossible foundation. For decades, that foundation held. Engineering triumphed, ambition won. 39 million people made a life in a place that shouldn't support them. But the knife is getting sharper. The cards are wobbling. The paradoxes, all or nothing water designed to burn landscapes, cascading earthquake failures aren't getting better, they're accelerating. The system that makes California possible is the same system that will tear it apart. This isn't about blame. The people who built Los Angeles weren't stupid. They were ambitious, visionary even. They looked at a desert and said, "We can make this work." And they did, for a century. But geography doesn't care about human ambition. Mountains block rain, deserts generate wind, faults slip, plants burn. These processes operated for millions of years before humans arrived, and they'll continue long after. The paradise is engineering its own end. Not because Californians made mistakes, though they made some, but because they built a civilization in a place where water is either absent or overwhelming, where fire is baked into the DNA of the landscape, and where the ground itself is slowly tearing apart. 3 threats, 1 system, all connected, all accelerating. The collapse has already started. It's not dramatic. It's not sudden. It's incremental. 1 fire season worse than the last, 1 drought that doesn't end, 1 neighborhood that doesn't rebuild, 1 insurance company that pulls out, 1 family that decides the risk isn't worth it anymore. California won't vanish overnight. Rome didn't fall in a day either. But the system is under stress, and when complex systems fail, they often fail all at once. Gradually, then suddenly. That's how cascading failures work. Everything seems fine until it isn't, and by the time you realize the system is breaking, it's too late to stop it. The geography is the countdown, and the clock is ticking.